enjoy it? Is it everything that you expected? Were there some challenges? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's more than I expected. Um, I find it very personally rewarding. I enjoy it. It's busy. There's good days, there's crabby days, things go your way, and you get stabbed in the back once in a while. But that's okay. But all in all, it's been a great year.
Okay. Is there anything that you would say that sticks out the most, or anything that you're most proud of? Maybe is there a bill maybe that you introduced, or anything like that?
There's several bills I've introduced, but in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten two bills voted through the House. And both will eventually be signed by the governor. So one deals with credit card skimming, which is a new crime that's out there, and the other is the creation of an additional next Michigan zone in the central UP. Senator Casperson and I have been working on this with Representative McBroom helping as well to get this created, and it's already paying dividends. We're seeing Escanaba and Marquette work very closely already together. So once this bill gets signed into law, I think you're going to see some real positives in the central UP.
Right, and that was like creating a new zoning area. So, do, do you think that it's a good thing for the UP? I have a feeling maybe like people that work in like government have an idea about it, but I don't necessarily think that the people really know about it. So do you think that this is a good thing, just maybe on a smaller scale for the people that live in the Marquette, or maybe just, we'll say the UP, but obviously like the Marquette and Escanaba area? Is it a good thing for these two areas to have that?
Absolutely, and this is an issue that is not going to touch a lot of people personally. Okay, and it's something that your neighbor may not be aware of, and it may not affect him at all. What this does is it gives local control the ability, and this is cities, townships, counties, the ability to offer incentives to get companies here to locate here, to expand their businesses here. It's an economic development package. There are only 5 of them currently in the state right now. They're all located down below the bridge. There's a shocker. So these bills expand the act to 6 zones, and then my bill dictates where it can be located. So again, for businesses, they'll know it, they'll understand it, but it's not something that's going to touch mom and dad at home typically.
And so you were talking about the location. Do we know exactly where it's going to be, or are you kind of just waiting?
Well, the designation will be Marquette and Delta counties.
Okay.
So these counties as a whole, these townships, cities, villages in these 2 counties will have the ability to do different things to attract businesses.
Speaking of attracting businesses, do you see the UP as an actual place that businesses would want to go?
Absolutely. We have tremendous quality of life here, second to none. I think most people realize that. We also have an outstanding, well-trained workforce up here. That's another clear advantage. We have disadvantages, but one of the main drives behind this next Michigan zone is the use of multimodal transportation. And we have 2 airports, 2 seaports, rail that crisscrosses us. So it really, we have the option to attract some pretty good-sized distribution companies.
Okay, let's also talk about the privatization of prison food. You are not for that. Tell me why.
A couple of reasons. One is fairness. The way this was looked at by the state, we as the Department of Corrections puts a lot of restraints on food services, okay? We require that our prisons have a meal for every inmate for every meal, okay? Every breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they have to have food for them. We didn't require the private vendor to match those criterias. They looked at how many meals were actually being eaten and bid on that. So obviously their number came in lower. They also looked at the fact that we require our prisons to buy from one area where the costs are significantly higher. We didn't require that of the outside vendors. So I testified before the Civil Service Commission and said, look, if you want savings, why don't we allow our prisons to operate under these same rules? You know, that number will drop significantly, but we didn't. But the major issue is the safety concern, okay? This is a $2 billion a year operations. That's what we spend on corrections every year. For a paltry savings, we're gonna put our corrections officers at risk. Unacceptable to me.
Okay. Do you see anything that you're interested in working towards next year? I know one of the big issues we were talking about education, and a lot of people in the UP I noticed have children. So that obviously education has to be at the forefront for them, because as parents you want to make sure that your child is getting the best education. So talk to me a little bit about education as far as like what are, is there any outlook for you? Is there anything that you'd like to work on or see change?
You know, education is probably the biggest issue that we deal with. When the state was broke a few years ago, all the departments got cut. Education really got cut hard. Now, as the state is starting to make a comeback, I think it's adamant that we start returning some of that investment back into our schools, because 2 years ago, I think we had 23 school districts that were in a deficit mode. Today, out of roughly 500 districts, we have 163 in that position. So financially, it's been a challenge. And then we also have to look at, you know, curriculum and how we're teaching our kids. That's vitally important. As a state, we virtually walked away from vocational and technical education a few years ago, many years ago.
That's a big issue for a lot of people up here, especially since just from talking to principals in the past, they're just not, some students are not interested in the whole college, like, you know, ABCD that you have to fill, and so they're trying to bring that back in as far as like more like working with your, I don't even know, like, because I wasn't in that mode when I was a kid, but for students who are not interested in going to college but want to be able to go into some sort of like trade or something like that, that's one of the things that I think is like for the schools, like some schools would rather focus on that or have that as an option for their students.
Right. So there's challenges with vocational and technical education. One is financial, but the other is a curriculum. And you know, we have so many requirements that students just don't have the ability to take that class that they might want. And I always point out welding. I only have, out of the 13 school districts in my district, I think one welding class, okay? Number one job in the UP right now, available, welding. Mm. And I hear the same thing when I talk to the reps downstate. Agriculture, they're trying to find, you know, these young kids coming out of school that are interested in ag, and this is different now. This isn't out, you know, on the old tractor planting seeds. I mean, these are high-tech, you know, combines and very technical, scientific-based programs. But these kids aren't getting that early influence in high school. So.
Okay. Two more questions and I'm going to let you go.
Sure.
Let's talk about the wolf hunt. Obviously, today's the day that hunters can hunt wolves. And I know that you had mentioned that you do think that it's necessary, especially in the UP areas that it's affecting. A lot of dogs have been killed because of wolves. So talk to me about that. I mean, we've got the proponents. I mean, there's the people that are against it are completely against it. They want to try to put something on the ballot. They're saying that it's going to be a trophy hunt. Do you think that it's going to be a trophy hunt, or do you think this is something that needs to be done?
No, absolutely. I will always back wildlife management based on science. Michigan has one of the best game managed programs in the United States, period. If we're not number one, we're number two or three. We're very good. This is absolutely based on science. When people ask me, you know, how will you know if it's successful? My answer is simple. We won't need another one, okay? If it's successful and it drives the numbers down in these very few specific areas where we're not having the depredation that's occurring right now, whether it's livestock or whether it's family pets, if we don't stop it, it's going to continue to grow. And so I think that this is sound science, and I think it'll be successful.
Okay, final question. Talk to me about the future. I mean, like, is this something that obviously you're now our state representative in this area, so are you interested in staying in office? Is there anything that you want people to know as far as like I'm looking forward to doing this next year, anything like that?
Yeah, I certainly love doing what I do right now. I've really enjoyed this past year. I would love to stay in this capacity. I don't look at anything right now beyond what I'm doing now. I'm just getting going. I've got a lot of legislation out there in different stages, so I just intend to keep working hard at the job I've got.